The Locked On Podcast Network presents The Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The Oklahoma City Thunder get a huge bounce back win in game number 2 against the Indiana Pacers.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Thunder winning a finals game for the first time in 13 years, getting this win to even up the series 1-1 as SGA was brilliant, and the Thunder got back to their identity, but also learned some lessons from game number 1. The Thunder have controlled this series. I mean, they've outright controlled this series for the vast majority of it. However, they let go of the most important part of it was game 1 in the fourth quarter when they let go of the rope. And then, of course, the Pacers led at the 0.3 second mark. And that's enough to get a win. That's enough to have a tied series. But it just shows that the Thunder are capable, as we knew heading into the series, of playing fantastic basketball. And tonight, they did it for the full 48 minutes. And I thought that there was a couple of quotes from postgame that really explain what has been an embodiment from the Thunder team, what has been their bread and butter this entire season. Chet Holmgren and SGA talking about what it feels like when you're playing Indiana and you get up by 15, 20, and you know that another Indiana run is coming. Chet Holmgren said, you can't play like you're up. You've just got to try. You can't try to just run the clock out. You have to continue to score and continue to stack stops on the other end. And SGA said, you can't just land the first punch. You've got to keep landing punches all game long. And he obviously gave the team some grace of you can't play a perfect game, but it's about landing as many punches as possible, not just the first one. And so often we think about that first one and how it sets the table for the 48 minutes, but this Indiana team truly does play all 48 minutes. And this Thunder team responded in a game in which they grew their biggest lead in that second quarter, getting up by 23 points. Right after that, you saw the Pacers going a 10-0 run. So it was a 35-9 Thunder run. That they were playing fast. They were making quick decisions. They were stacking stops, and it led them to a 23-point lead. Indiana calls a timeout, and Indiana immediately goes on a 10-0 run to put the Thunder lead to 18 at the half, which, the fact that the deficit only got cut from 23 to 18 is a big win for the Thunder at the end of that second quarter, considering how sloppy things got for them heading into intermission. And then the Thunder were able to parlay that into a second half where they continued to keep the foot on the gas, and they had to navigate through some adjustments of the whistle. The officials tonight, I thought, were consistent in each half. It was just a different consistency. The first half, they were consistent in letting everyone, it's just no holds bars. It's a bar fight in the first half. Second half, you couldn't look at somebody funny without getting a call on either side. And so each team had to adjust in real time to the different whistle. The Thunder did that. The Thunder were able to maintain their lead and were able to keep the Pacers at arm distance for 48 minutes instead of the 40 minutes from game 1. And that understanding of, hey, it can be at the 5-minute mark and you can be fending off the Pacers all game long. If you start to play, like Chet is saying, like you're in the lead and you start to kind of go on cruise control, try to run the clock out, they're going to beat you. And to learn that lesson after one game has been what this young Thunder team has done all year long. It's funny how the conversation has shifted around Oklahoma City, because on every single squad show that we've ever done on this network during the regular season, you get beat over the head with Matt Moore and others saying that this team's too young to do anything. And then they get to this stage and they lose in game 1, and it's the biggest failure of all time. And they've continuously found ways to improve and learn from those mistakes. That's what's gotten them here. They had to grow up in that Denver series. They had to learn in that Minnesota series how to play with a series lead. And against Indiana, they had to learn how to play against the Pacers and how to play for 48 minutes and finish a game all the way through. Because the reality is, as Mark points out, that the Pacers are an acquired taste. The reality is that the Nuggets and the Timberwolves, they didn't make the Thunder run through the ticker tape, right? They didn't make the Thunder finish. They gave up. They rolled over. In the blowout games of those two series, both teams were willing to wave the white flag. That's not in this Pacers team, even as, they have, a 1-0 series lead and have done their job, just like that Denver team had did their job in game one of that series. Like the Pacers didn't quit until it was, mathematically impossible for them to win. And the same can't be said for other squads, right? So they had to learn how to play a 48-minute game as a very young team, and they did that. And they did that mainly by playing quicker, making better decisions, by being better in transitional opportunities, right? It doesn't translate into numbers because they actually lost fast break points. They actually weren't too much better in points off turnovers tonight comparatively to game one, because they only forced 15 turnovers for Indiana. The Thunder had about 14 points off of those turnovers, so that they weren't even that much better in that area. But the process was better. The process was extraordinarily better in the half court. The Thunder ran much better offense in this game. They had higher screens. They actually set more screens, because typically the Thunder like to slip screens and just kind of ghost them. And that doesn't initiate the contact, thus initiate switches and initiate kind of miscommunication from the Pacers defense. They did that tonight at a much higher clip, and especially Isaiah Hartenstein went a long way in helping the Thunder create advantages with his screening. They had more ball movement. They had quicker ball movement, and they started the actions earlier in the shot clock and found multiple different opportunities in one possession to eventually break down this Pacers defense and eventually get points. And a large part of that was because of the MVP, was because of SGA. But you also saw Chet Holmgren bounce back in a big way. And you can't forget what you saw from Aaron Wiggins. I mean, like to put it frank, like more of your team showed up tonight than they did in game one. I mean, the Thunder made almost half their shots, 48% from the floor, 39% from three, 87% from the free throw line. The Thunder won the rebounding battle by 2. And to me, win the rebounding battle is a blanket statement in this case of, in every series, I've been looking at the Thunder just be competitive on the glass. You can't have these lopsided rebounding columns like you had in game one against Indiana, like you had in your losses to Denver. Can you just get within 5 of either side, right? 4 of either side, 2 of either side. And in this case, they got on the high side, 50-48. They turned Indiana over a couple of more times, 15-13. 13 is an extraordinarily, high number for the Thunder specifically. But when you look at how the turnovers happened, a lot of that was in the first quarter when they were sped up. And I thought that the adjustment to the game and the moment and the environment happened quickly for this Thunder team. It obviously had to happen, because in that first quarter, you saw this back and forth, 6 lead changes, a tie, the giveaways were all front loaded. I mean, that in that first quarter alone, the Thunder were kicking the ball over the court, it felt like, and you look at the end, and they had 3 of those turnovers in the first quarter. And then the first half, to kind of bring it out, they had 8 of those turnovers in the first half. So, the Thunder had better ball security as the game went on. They got more comfortable as the game went on, but they just simply made more shots, and it's a make or miss league. Like, a lot of the defensive stuff was the same. They changed a little bit. They were able to contest harder the corners as they did in game one, but a lot of the game was the same. It's just the shot making went down, right? Like, this is sort of where you just kind of tip it to a make or miss league. And that's where SGA really found his stride and took over this game as the league MVP, as the NBA scoring champion.
Ever check your bank account and wonder where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
The Thunder take game 2. They're all over the Pacers with their defense.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast.
Game 2, Pacers crushed by the Thunder from late first quarter on. It was all OKC. Pacers with some pockets of success here, a little bit of thing there. Do they have some juice? It's a 13-point game. No, they do not. The Thunder defense strangling. Tyrese Halliburton, not good enough, limping off the podium at the end of the game. So much to break down from this Thunder defense that's cutting off the paint, that's playing connected ball and giving the Pacers a ton of fits in the second game. And for the first time the entire playoffs, the Pacers aren't up 2-0, and they're not ahead in a series after winning the first game. The story of the game that everybody's talking about, and I think poorly, which I will now explain, is Tyrese Halliburton's night. Now, let's be clear, and we got to start with the obvious things. Just not good enough. 7 shots through 3 quarters. I believe he had 5 in the first half. His 3 gave the Pacers their 3-point lead in the first quarter, the biggest they had of the game. And then he couldn't get going at all. 2 shots in the third quarter, giving him 7 through 3 quarters. And I'm going to use the through 3 quarters a lot here, and you'll see why as we continue. If you watch the game, you know why. He could not get going at all. The other part of this that I think is under-discussed and leads into a lot of where I want to go with this, he had 3 assists very quickly in this game, right? And that is sometimes what I think people miss, is that he'll have 7 points, but like 9 assists at halftime of the game. He had 1 assist on the very first play. Siakam hits a 3. He gets his first assist. Andrew Nembhard 3 with 7:39 to go in the first quarter. He gets his second assist. Ben Mathurin with a 3 with 4:38 to go. He gets his third assist. He did not record another assist at all in the first half. And then in the third quarter, more struggles with the passing. Only 1 assist in that quarter too. So it was twofold struggles that suggest that this is more than just be more aggressive, man. Go take more shots. And I'm not even saying that with a snarky tone to just be like, that's a silly way of looking at it. But I think it is in this game, because here's what's going on here. Look, I think it's been well established by people who watch every Tyrese Halliburton game. If you've just been watching the playoffs, if your perception of him is wrong, whatever, he's probably the best player in the league that can singularly be shut down by one amazing defender. And I don't mean shut down like completely erased from a game, but you can stick Lou Dort on him as the Thunder, and you need other help. People are right by him when a screen is coming. It's not that Lou Dort is just all over him and shutting him down and that's it, because the Pacers could just set a screen and get him going, right? It's not that simple, but he's the best player in the league that kind of just one guy can really cause that much kind of trouble. And it's as much on Halliburton as it is the Pacers to make that not the case. So let's zoom out for a second. Thing 1, Tyrese Halliburton has to be better. He has to find avenues against weaker defenders to get better shots. Right, one of his last shot of game 1, Cason Wallace is on him, wiggles to a spot he likes, fades away, and scores. Right, he can do that against a Cason Wallace level defender. There are plays where he's like the end of the third quarter where he comes across the timeline. Here's Lou Dort. Here's a second defender. He's got to get off the ball right away. Aaron Nesmith's open. Aaron Nesmith steps back for 3. Even Aaron Nesmith gets blocked. That's the Thunder defense in a nutshell. So here's what's going on. And we'll talk a lot about the paint defense for the Thunder in the second segment here. The way the Thunder defense gets its strengths is they cut off the paint so well and they force turnovers. The Pacers love to get in the paint and love to never turn it over. It's part of what makes them so potent. Halliburton is seeing so many bodies around screens when he's going to the paint that he's not going that way because something else is more open. So the natural instinct of a pass-first point guard there is probably correct. The Pacers had success in game 1 with Siakam attacking the defense in that exact situation, with Andrew Nembhard attacking the defense in that exact situation. Aaron Nesmith is one of the few guys who can kind of bully his man and get into the paint in this game tonight in the series, and he's not finishing that well there. He had actually a couple plays where he just got completely shut down in the paint, but that's available. The Pacers did not do well enough in those 4-on-4 situations, but that's what Halliburton is seeing and why he's having so much trouble. I don't think this is a won't. Right, I don't think Tyrese Halliburton is getting the ball and saying, I'm not going into the paint. It's not an active choice. I mean, it kind of is, but it's not because he won't. It's because he kind of can't, given the coverage, or maybe shouldn't is the right word. And so that is why I think this is being talked about so wrong. Because, again, the headliner is obvious. He needs to be better. 7 shots through 3 quarters, not enough. 4 assists through 3 quarters, not enough. But it's also a team-level issue. And what I mean by that is, let's skip ahead to the fourth quarter, where Tyrese Halliburton takes almost as many shots as he took for the rest of the game. 7 shots through 3 quarters, 6 in the fourth quarter. 2 assists that period, 12 points. They win his minutes. It doesn't matter. The game was decided. So that quarter gets a little bit of a floats away into the memory wind kind of thing because the game was decided. If you watch this game, you'll know why this is the case. Like, he finishes the game leading the Pacers in shot attempts with 13. He was the Pacers' leading scorer in the game. It should not be talked about that way. But what is important in that quarter is, and I tweeted this is as much a Pacers thing as it is a Tyrese Halliburton thing. My exact tweet, if I could ever learn to scroll, it reads, Halliburton being better here is more about what the Pacers are doing than what he is doing, which is not meant to say that it's all about that. But what I mean to say is he was getting it on the move. Here comes a screen with Halliburton off the ball. He catches. He's a half step ahead of his defender. That helps him get into the paint because he doesn't have to beat his man and then see a defense. He's getting it in a spot where he can attack the baseline and not see all those bodies in the paint and get to a floater there. He's getting into those pitches at the top of the key with a big Miles Turner, whoever, that get him going on the move, get the big rolling into space. That was a key action to start the third quarter. Miles Turner was crushing to start the second half with pick and pops, with pick and rolls, with whatever, because he was doing exactly that. And so, again, do not take this the wrong way. Tyrese Halliburton has to be better. Think back to the December Pacers-Thunder game. It's almost the exact same conversation. But the Pacers won a game in this series. They know, even with the defense played against Halliburton, what it's going to take to get him going. And it takes a team effort. And you know it takes a team effort on games where when Halliburton is slowed, everybody is slowed. That's why it matters so much to me that the first 3 assists he had were for threes, because that defense being played by OKC shut down Halliburton and thus everybody else, right? It really cut off the passes to shooters. It really made it hard for those players to get the ball in space. The Pacers figured out stuff as the game went on. Their cutting got better. Lots of things really looked more effective. But when Halliburton can't be himself getting 2 feet in the paint, spraying it out from there, the whole Pacers offense looked worse. So this is on Halliburton, obviously, to, one, be better at getting past his own man, getting into the teeth of the defense, making plays from there. But this is also on the Pacers to find strategies and create situations where he can have success doing those things. That is where I think the game shifted. And for him is when they found some of those things. And that's what they need to carry into game 3, is what happened in that fourth quarter. Can they do that again to start the game or earlier in the process of the game? Because it didn't ever feel like the situations were there for him to be at his absolute best. And so that is the next step of the series. What does it take to get Tyrese Halliburton going? Because the Thunder have had his number a lot. And the 4-on-4 stuff for the Pacers elsewhere wasn't as good in this game, and he wasn't getting face guarded like Mikal Bridges-esque from the last series. But last series, Mikal Bridges starts face guarding him. They realize they need to get him going on the move a little bit. Guess what happens in game 6? He gets going on the move. He's more involved. He's not even scoring more, but the Pacers offense is just plain old better. So this is a new challenge. A very talented defense cutting off a player like this. They have got to make sure that the Pacers are doing all they can to get Halliburton his spots. That's what everybody always talks about. Who isn't him, is it's on them as much as it is him. He's got to be better, and he knows it. He did have a little limp coming off the podium. I don't think it affected him during the game. It's obviously not an excuse for how he played. He did play in the game. He's got to be better. But, man, that was not good enough from him, and it was not good enough from the Pacers finding ways to make him be him. And that's the biggest part of why it's 1-1. Stats will remember his game incorrectly. I think he would admit that, although he did find some stuff with that floater, and that shot could be there. A signature shot of his career. No, never mind. He's had so many crazy game winners this playoffs. The first signature shot of his career, that Bucks game winner last year, was a floater. He's gotten better at it throughout his career. He's making enough threes in this series. He is the Pacers' identity in offense in so many ways. He's got to find ways to be better, to get in the paint, and keep the ball moving. The Pacers have to find ways to keep moving, to keep the ball getting back to him, and make sure that he is getting advantageous situations against a very tough defense.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast.
Tough start to the weekend, yeah. I was not super stoked to see the news come out about one Zach Edey not being able to have a normal offseason, right? That's a major disappointment, a really big deal for this Grizzlies team. So much of what we've been sold on the Tuomas Isalo experience has to do with what a good screen-setting, legitimate big man can bring to the table. And now the Memphis Grizzlies are not going to get that experience. anytime soon, because this is not your everyday ankle sprain, right? Edey is expected to miss the start of this coming season due to surgery on this ankle. And this is from the Grizzlies themselves, their PR media release. During an offseason training session this week, Edey re-sprained his left ankle. It's important to remember, a little context here, timeout, little context. Edey has sprained this ankle a couple of different times throughout his career, and especially in the last year or so here with Memphis. One of the reasons his summer league was shortened last year in his rookie campaign. Imaging revealed excessive ligamentous laxity, which will require Edey to undergo surgery to address the laxity and restabilize his ankle. So essentially, his sprain is so severe that the tendon or the actual ligaments may have ripped from the ankle bone itself. Now, that's speculation. I want to stress that. Maybe you're a doctor in the comments. You can hit me up on X as well, at Joe Mullen X. Let me know how you're feeling about this. My understanding is they are going to have to go in and either tighten these ligaments, reattach them, some sort of situation that surgery is needed for a really badly sprained ankle. I had not heard of that before, but when it's a recurring issue, maybe they're just trying to nip it in the bud right now. Preliminary timeline will be provided following surgery. Edey is expected to make a full recovery, and this is from a piece by the Daily Memphian's Chris Harrington. Edey's agent, Mark Bartelstein of Primary Sports, elaborated to Shams Charania. After consulting with the Grizzlies and multiple specialists, we decided this is the best approach for Zach long-term, as it gets him back to 100% with no limitations. We'll make a full recovery and be back better than ever. Again, he has sprained this ankle multiple times. Since becoming a member of the Grizzlies, they have decided to have surgery on this ankle. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about trying to replace Zach Edey. And you're probably sitting there thinking, you big dumb dummy, Joe. Not talking about my daughter, of course. She's wonderful. But you big dumb dummy, Joe Mullinax, you're not able to replace the 7'4", 290-pound Zach Edey. One of the points of Edey's strengths on this Grizzlies roster is what he brings to the table is so unique. And there might be some options in free agency and the draft that maybe we can discuss. But the fact of the matter is this: without Zach Edey in the fold, at least to start the season, this Grizzlies team is going to look vastly different. It impacts Jaren Jackson Jr. and John Morant first and foremost. And that's one of the most difficult things about this injury is your two biggest stars are arguably the two that get hit the hardest by Edey not being able to play. In the case of Jaren, it's fairly simple. If you can't find a center replacement, whether it's on the roster or off of it, then you're going to have Jaren play a lot more 5 spot, a lot more center than you would like for him to do. He is much better as a 4. We have seen that consistently throughout his career. Yes, there are flashes of brilliance when he plays the 5, but he's not able to be the weak side help defender that you like. He's not able to be the rebounder that everybody would like for him to be better at. While Jaren, in a perfect world, is a center, power forward is where he shines brightest. And then John Morant, who is so dependent on those Zach Edey screens. We talked about it numerous times here on Locked On Grizzlies. The best John Morant that we have ever seen comes with Jonas Valanciunas and especially Steven Adams. Hold that thought on old Steven Adams on the court. When those bigs played alongside Ja, that he was able to get screens set for him. He was able to play with space and close that space with his elite athleticism, his nifty handle. All the things that make Ja Morant are amplified when a true big man that can set good screens is there on the court with him in the pick and roll. That's obviously gone in the here and now. It's not all doom and gloom. That's important to point out. We'll talk about outside replacements for the big main, Zach Edey, later on in the show. But Brandon Clarke still exists on the roster. And if anything, I do think that it makes it more likely that Brandon Clarke, as he gets healthier, he's not expected to miss any of the regular season. He did not have to have surgery on his knee. The expectation for Brandon is he'll be good to go come training camp early fall. And when that hits, Brandon Clarke being on the roster, although he is not 7'4", ironically, he's 8 inches shorter than Zach Edey, roughly. Clarke has the leap ability. Clarke has the lateral movement defensively. And Clark also has the capacity to move and switch and be a wonderful front court partner with Jaren, just in a very different way. That Clark being there will help negate, at least for Jaren, some of the impact of this Edey absence. Now, the rebounding remains a concern. That's not Brandon Clark's elite space either. He's better at it than Jaren, but not by much. But you have that defensive malleability with Clark that still amplifies what Jaren can do as a defender, that if Clark is healthy, and that's a big if, similar injury to what Steven Adams had when Adams was here, but not the same body type, obviously, not the same injury, actually. Same injury, but different, if that makes sense. Clark will hopefully be ready to go. And I also think that it makes re-signing Santi Aldama, who has been in the news as a rumored target of the Detroit Pistons. We're not talking about that at length on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. DeMichael can later on in the week if he wants. But I'm not going to cover it extensively because it's kind of like saying the Grizzlies want Kevin Durant, to be honest with you. Yeah, the Detroit Pistons should want Santi Aldama. He fixed some problems for them. Are they going to overpay Santi Aldama? Probably not. Maybe so, I guess. But the fact remains that Santi Aldama is restricted free agent, and until an offer is made on Santi, the Grizzlies have first opportunity to re-sign that guy. And Santi at 6'11", again, not a traditional center, not a traditional big, but he's another big man who can help fill some of that void. So is it possible to replace the 7'4", 290-pound guy? I guess we're about to find out, right? Unlikely that the Grizzlies are able to do so. But you can try to recreate him in the aggregate in a variety of ways, and you certainly can put bodies on the floor to help fill that void to an extent. I think Brandon Clark becomes that much more important. Any and all trade machine fun can probably be put to the side for now. But I also think that it makes Santi Aldama's return important too. And it means that the Grizzlies might have to play a little bit differently than perhaps Tuomas Isolo wanted to begin the season. Because again, you watch his Paris basketball teams. Quick, athletic point guards having screens set by bigs. That is the fulcrum point for his offense. John Morant theoretically will be there, but the 7'4", 290-pound Edey will not, at least not to start the season. And it's a bummer because he has to focus on rehab now instead of growing his game. So get well, Zach. Obviously not the news that the Grizzlies and their fans wanted over the weekend, but no use crying over spilled milk, right? Feeling sorry for yourself isn't going to fix anything.
The NBA Finals are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel makes betting easy. Whether it's picking your favorite teams or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals, there's so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. You can place that first $5 bet on who you think will win the NFL Rookie of the Year. Travis Hunter is 9-1 to win the offensive award, but 10-1 to win the defensive award as well. I would probably take both of those. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
All right, so if you missed the news yesterday, or was it the day before? I don't know. The days all blur together in my head, quite frankly, this time of year and most of the year. I rarely know what day of the week it is. That is 100% accurate. You can call me on Wednesday morning and I don't know what day. I'm either working that day or I'm golfing. Those are the only days that click in my head. Work day, golf day, or sometimes it's both. Anyway, so the House v. NCAA settlement came down. Judge Claudia Wilkin ruled that the NCAA has to pay a bunch of back payments to athletes that should have gotten money over the years but weren't allowed to because of the amateurism rule enforced by the NCAA, which the courts have routinely said, yeah, this is illegal. You can't do that. And so that's all going away. That opened the door for NIL. Now, the House settlement allows athletic departments this year, this upcoming school year, 2025-2026, rosters will get cut down and athletes will be paid $20.5 million spread across the department. Now, how it gets spread across the department depends on the school. Some might go for, a 75% to football, 15 men's basketball, 5 women's basketball, and 5% everywhere else. Some might go directly proportional to the revenue generated by each sport in relation to how much money the athletic department wants to give to its athletes. Either way, that I suspect, since it just got issued by the judge, though it hasn't directly been challenged on Title IX grounds, I bet you there will be a Title IX question in there. Because certainly that will not be an equitable distribution of funds between men's and women's sports, because football makes most of the revenue. Does that mean the money should automatically go straight to football? That argument can certainly be made. So I'm waiting to see that. I don't have as big of a question there. I think having a salary cap overall, if I take off my Oregon hat for a moment, it is good for the sport of college football. To make things closer to a level playing field, it will never be perfectly level. It will not. College sports will never get to that particular point. And I don't think that it should, because schools that are able to raise more money and are willing to spend that money should be rewarded. What you don't want to have is a situation like you have in Major League Baseball, where all the teams are in the same league, sure, but the Dodgers' payroll is over $300 million a year, and there are teams that are not even paying $100 million a year for their roster. Moneyball is a great movie, but it doesn't represent a viable long-term successful plan to operate a league where money is changing hands like that. The NFL is a much better situation where there is a salary cap and you can spend into the luxury tax to go, over that cap. I don't know exactly how all the rules work, but you can do that, but it is much, much closer from one school to the next than it is in college sports or in Major League Baseball. So, and the NBA, I think, has the luxury tax as well. But the interesting thing that I think for Oregon could be more of a downside than an upside, but again, for college football is good, is the NIL collective angle. So any NIL deal, there's going to be a new college sports commission, and they're calling this NIL Go, where Deloitte, one of the big four accounting firms, has been contracted to evaluate all deals between student athletes and third-party NIL collectives, not payments that are coming from the athletic department, which are now legal via the House v. NCAA settlement, but Division Street, Oregon's NIL collective, would not be able to just go out and say, we're going to pay whatever we want for, let's just say hypothetically, I'm speaking purely hypothetically, I'm not reporting anything, but let's say Derek Harmon cost $1 million last year. That's obviously well over $600. And so if Oregon's NIL collective, which won't go away, but it'll just have to go through this review process, if they want to go and say, we're going to pay Derek Harmon $1 million to come play for Oregon this year, Deloitte might come back and say, no, that we don't deem that to be fair market value. You can't give him that much money. And so the idea behind that is to cut down on the number of pay-for-play opportunities or to eliminate them. And I don't know that you can ever get to that particular point, but the idea, again, is to close the gap between the haves and the have-nots. And Oregon has certainly been a have in the NIL and portal world. And so if that holds up legally, that's a big-time game changer for roster construction, because now, the bidding wars that people hate so much are going to exist, but at a smaller level, because Deloitte will be able to say, yeah, okay, you're offering to pay $3 million for a corner. Yeah, a corner is not worth $3 million. How they're getting that valuation, I'm not entirely sure. But for any prospects out there Oregon's gotten because they had more NIL, now they're going to have to go make a more holistic pitch. Now, do I think that Oregon has been exclusively recruiting well because of NIL? Absolutely, positively not. No. And one thing that I have said repeatedly is that across all the changes to the landscape of college athletics, Oregon has adapted correctly and thrived. That has continuously been true. When it was, how do you get Oregon on the national stage? Let's wear fancy uniforms, and everybody's talking about, yeah, that worked pretty well. Then there was a facilities race, and Oregon was right there. And Oregon continued with the uniform game. And NIL came about, and Oregon was ready to be a tier 1 school. And the portal came about, and Oregon crushes it. And Oregon needed to up their recruiting, and they did that. All these changes over the years. Oregon has continuously adapted and succeeded. So while you can certainly make the argument that top tier NIL schools like Oregon, Ohio State, SMU has an incredibly well-funded collective. USC has been falling into this category recently. While you can certainly argue that those schools are going to have to do things differently, it doesn't mean they aren't still the best position to succeed. It just means the high-end amount of dollars, again, if it holds up in court, because the courts have consistently said, yeah, you can't cap the earning potential of the student athletes just because they're playing under the banner of NCAA athletics. They are adults, and you can't do this in any other field. Why are you able to do it here? So that case still has to be made in order to limit what the NIL collectives can do. But the attempt to get rid of pay for play and to get rid of, boosters having so much influence over the construction of college rosters could very well be on its way. It is here. Like any NIL deal struck starting now, even though NIL Go doesn't officially launch until Wednesday, June 11th, that deal that would be struck between now and that, like, let's say Dante Moore wanted to renegotiate his NIL deal right now with Division Street for whatever reason. That now has to go through NIL Go and Deloitte for their review to say, no, you can't give him that much money. But I think deals that have already been put in place get to stay grandfathered in, which is why there were so many deals that were pushed to get they were pushing to get through. By they, I mean everybody in college athletics behind the scenes. They were trying to get him through because they knew this was coming down, and suddenly there were going to be restrictions. So is it great for Oregon? Not necessarily, because the NIL was a way for them to create an advantage over certain other schools. However, as I've stated repeatedly, Oregon is not solely an NIL recruiter. They do not have unlimited NIL, and whatever situation college sports wants to be in, Oregon's going to succeed. They didn't get Jackson Cantwell. You know why? Because Miami had a bigger NIL offer. Well, guess what? That NIL offer might not now be allowed to get up to $2.5 million for a kid who hasn't taken a snap of college football yet beyond high school. They might say, yeah, you can offer like $200,000, but you can't go to $2.5 million or anything like that. But wherever the limits are, Oregon's going to be able to reach them. So I my recruiting expectations don't change at all. But again, with the NIL collective factor, wait and see if that holds up in court, because I have serious questions about whether it will.
Ever check your bank account and wonder where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies.
We got to talk some basketball after Desmond Claude committed to Washington, because this just raises all of the expectations that we have for Danny Sprinkle and this basketball team this season. Desmond Claude this past year at USC led the team in scoring with 15.1 points per game, also led them in assists, and I believe it was 4.2 per contest. So this is a really high impact wing guy with 1 year of eligibility remaining, who's just going to step in and start right away for this roster. And this was the piece that we've been talking about for a while in terms of Washington needs one more high-end wing guy to round out this roster. And this is just a fantastic addition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously anytime you can grab the number one player available in the portal
even as we get into the later stages here, and grab a guy that led a Big Ten team in scoring as you enter your second year in the Big Ten. Obviously, USC is also, but anytime that you can grab a guy like that to kind of fill the one hole that we kind of had still for as far as the starting five goes on this basketball team, I think you feel pretty good about that. And I think Claude fits in really well with what Danny Sprinkle and the Huskies want to do on offense, especially. Claude is more of a primary ball handler for USC, but I think he's going to move a little bit off the ball, gives you a little bit more versatility in terms of anyone can initiate offense now, whether it's going to be him or Wesley Yates or Kamari Peterson or Zoom Diallo. Like all of those guys are capable of initiating the offense. And I think that gives you a lot more versatility than they've had this last season in Sprinkle's first year.
Absolutely. And it's something where, you can talk about his defense and just say he's also a really high level defender, which is something that I don't want to say this team desperately lacked last year, because we saw guys like Tyler Harris really improve on that end of the floor throughout the season. But it's just something where it's very clear that team was just not experienced enough to get the job done. As whatever our expectations might have been for them going into the year last year, as the season played out, it was okay. It was very obvious where the holes were on that roster. And now we look at this one, all of those holes are kind of gone. And it's something where, we look at what the recruitment process was for this final edition, right? Where it was supposed to be, one of these big time guys, whether there are a whole bunch of guys that ended up going elsewhere, where if Darian Williams was a target at one time. I just think about all the different names just kind of in that mold of Danny Sprinkle really wanted to go out and just have one of these high impact guys at the position for 1 year. Ty Grant Foster was another one who ended up signing with Gonzaga. But I kind of look at this position as a whole, and this is everything that, I feel like people, and myself included, I was really high on him, expected Tyler Harris to be moving forward. But obviously, with him going elsewhere, it was, okay, who's going to step into this role? And I think Danny Sprinkle has just done such a masterful job of improving this roster in multiple ways, where it's not all hinging on one person like it was with Great Osborne last year. And, you look at just all the different roles that you're going to see from just this projected starting five that you did a fantastic job writing about over on Huskies Wire, where right now it's Kamari Peterson, Wesley Yates, Desmond Claude. I was like, wait, hold on. Who am I missing here? Jacob Ognisevich and Frank Kepnon. So you got 4 transfers in there. And I'm sure some people are going to look at that and say, oh, that's a little concerning, because we saw the chemistry be a little off last year with that many new faces on the roster. But this just feels different.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think there's probably some valid concern there, especially like you have a lot of guys that are used to being offense initiators, being sort of the focal point of an offense, right? Where like Ognisevich and Peterson are both like conference players of the year last year. Yeah. Obviously, we talked about Claude led USC in scoring. Yates led all Big Ten freshmen in scoring during conference play last season. Like all of these guys are used to getting their own shots off. And so how they work within the system is going to be something to watch, certainly. But at the same time, like you have such a good mix of experienced guys with some more youth than you had last year, where like last year it was like the team was just so inexperienced kind of all overall. And the grad transfers that they did bring in didn't really provide the impact that they were really looking for. And so you kind of got a team that was kind of figuring it all out on the fly while also learning how to play college basketball. Yeah. And with this team, like you're figuring it all out on the fly. But it's all guys that have played 2, 3, 4 years of college basketball already. They know the environment. They know what they're getting into. You're grabbing guys that have NCAA tournament experience, that have Big Ten experience. Like you're right. It does just feel different this time around.
So I want to go back to one of the things you said, which I think is a really great point. You talk about the questions about how they're all going to work in the system. And I think that's one of the most important points when you talk about Desmond Claude, where you mentioned it. You said he's a primary ball handler, as who led the team in assists at USC last year. And that's something that I just don't think we saw last year when, there were certain rotations on just a certain lineup on the floor, I would say, where you didn't have a second guy who really looked like a distributor. Where when Great Osborne did that, it looked fantastic. And there were different points in time where it just felt like he didn't have that help around him, where I think Zoom Diallo is going to be a phenomenal player. I don't want that to sound like I'm knocking him in any way, shape, or form, because I think he's going to get there. But he was a true freshman. And as Danny Sprinkle said it numerous times last season, those mistakes were going to happen. Careless turnovers, different things like that are just, by definition, a freshman mistake. And that's not going to be a problem anymore this year, and it's great that, Claude can just kind of tie this all together, because one thing that you omitted for no reason other than it wasn't part of the conversation, Kumari Peterson, Wesley Yates, and Jacob Ognisevich all shot over 40% behind 3-point line last year, which was something this team was just absolutely abysmal at throughout last year. And just seeing those improvements and having two guys in Kumari Peterson and Desmond Claude in the starting five, plus Zoom Diallo, JJ Mandaquit, whoever else you want to say can be a ball handler coming off the bench, adding all of those guys in as well is just going to continue to elevate this roster.
Yeah, it's like what you were talking about earlier, right? Where it doesn't feel like there's one focal point on this team like there was last year with Great, right? Where if Peterson gets into foul trouble or Desmond Claude gets into foul trouble or something like that during the course of a game, you are not suddenly like without a ball handler and an offense initiator for the rest of that time until they come back into the game, right? Like you have someone that is a member of the starting five already that you can sort of have be the primary ball handler. You can bring another wing in off the bench. You can bring Diallo in off the bench. You can bring Mandaquit in off the bench. Like you have so many different options now to get into your offense and to spread the ball around and get it to those guys that are, shooting 40% from three and really like just ride the hot hand kind of every game. And that's the way that successful teams, especially in college basketball, are built. It's very rare that a team is built around just like one guy. And those are the teams that make like a super deep run, unless like that guy is Cooper Flagg, right? But like, but like none of those guys are that level of talent. Obviously, all of these guys are great, and we're very excited for them to suit up for Washington. But none of them are going to be Cooper Flagg. That's just is what it is.
It's unfair expectations.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And so, like, to have that many guys that can initiate the offense and can get hot any night and like distribute the ball and get the ball to the right place, get the ball to the right hand, I think is going to give you a lot more consistency night to night that than we saw last season, which was a huge problem for them last season.
The NBA Finals are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel makes betting easy. Whether it's picking your favorite teams or diving into player props from three-pointers to steals, there's so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. You could place that first $5 bet on who you think will win the NFL Rookie of the Year. Travis Hunter is 9-1 to win the offensive award, but 10-1 to win the defensive award as well. I would probably take both of those. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Which Rams players are standing out at OTAs?
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast.
The talk right now is the OTAs. What's going on at OTAs? And first, we want to talk about the tight end position because Tyler Higbee, he spoke with the media and he made some comments about how the tight end room is looking. He said, it's honestly one of the best I've been a part of, I think, since I've been here. He said, just to top to bottom, we've got a lot of depth. I think it might allow us to do some things, get some more 12 personnel on the field. So that's good to hear. I mean, he's saying the right things. He's talking about Terrence Ferguson. He's talking about just the talent in that room. And that has been one of the big takeaways early on from everyone that has anything to say about the Rams OTAs is that Terrence Ferguson, he's included in that group that has impressed the coaches. During the OTAs, Sean McVay said, Terrence has been good. We've seen a guy that's been really attentive in meetings, got a really good feel, just been really impressed with him and looking forward to seeing him just continue to take it a step at a time. So that's great to see. And then offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur on the Rams' first pick. They got the 46th pick in the draft. They took him in the second round after trading out of that first round. LaFleur said he has a good demeanor about himself. He's got a cool, calm, kind of swagger demeanor about himself, fitting in a real well. He's fitting in great with these guys, and he's just continuing to get better. You just want to see guys that are willing to get better in their fundamentals. And then when they're asked, maybe once a day, then they're ready to perform. You got to go attack the defense, and without the pads on, it's just still go for it, and he's not shy. So it's great to see. Like, I mean, these guys are itching to get those pads on to take it to the next level, but it sounds like Ferguson is hungry, and he can't wait for it. I mean, Matthew Stafford said, quote, he's excited for him. Again, all of his development at this stage, we're just trying to figure out who we're going to be as a team. So everyone is speaking really highly of Ferguson, and typically you get this around this time of year. I mean, everything is sunshine and rainbows in May and June, and hope springs eternal, and we understand that. But I think the interesting thing about all of this is how you're going to see him implemented. How is he going to be featured? I mean, he clearly is going to be involved in some fashion. The question is how. I mean, does he do things that Cooper Kupp did, where Cooper Kupp was used in the middle of the field, moving the chains? They used him in the F package, really, even the 12 personnel package as the F. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the Rams do. Do you use less 11 personnel, which has been their calling card under Sean McVay for so many years, right up there as the league leader in that? But Ferguson, he's going to give you some variety. He's going to allow this offense to be more dynamic. And I think the number one area where I'm looking for him is in the red zone. The red zone has been that area where the Rams, it's been a mixed bag. I mean, I'll take it to my grave. I mean, if you have better red zone threats the last couple of years, I think that there's a chance that they have another Lombardi trophy, because we saw what happened in the first matchup with the Lions in the postseason a couple years ago. You struggled in the red zone. Then last year, you kind of need to punch your ticket in more throughout the season and the playoffs as well. If he can be a guy that's a target that they hoped that Colby Parkinson was going to be, that's going to allow this offense to put up more points. And when you put up more points, you put less stress on the defense. You put less stress on the entire team, where last year it was almost like, even though they won a ton of games, weren't a ton of blowouts. I mean, there was not a lot of comfortable wins, and you're always kind of having to just manage things. And having the addition of Davante Adams, having Terrence Ferguson as a guy that could potentially do some things to stretch the field, it's going to be interesting to see what this team can do with him. And I think the cool thing, too, for Ferguson is that, I mean, it does sound like, yeah, he's not a receiver, right? He's not Cooper Kupp, but we saw back in 2017, Cooper Kupp, he showed up to OTAs, and this is the same type of tenor. This is the same type of mindset that he had, and the comments made about him were similar to the ones that are being made about Terrence Ferguson. And what happened? Well, he had a role that year. He made an impact as a rookie year, and in his rookie year as a rookie, and it was great to see him do just that. So we could see the same with Ferguson. So yeah, I mean, look, you want to hear that. You definitely want to hear that your tight ends, you want to hear that your rookies are definitely hitting the ground running and taking everything they can. And I think, too, just a great year to learn from him. I mean, I don't know if you saw just Puka Nacua learning from Davante Adams. And can Davante Adams take him to the next level? And we've seen that. I mean, we've seen that throughout the history of this organization, really. I mean, from guys like from Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, just imparting their knowledge and wisdom to guys like Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce, and just kind of great receiver pairings throughout this history as they learn from each other. And it's something that I feel is transferable in the sense that I think it's kind of learning is contagious. And I think it's kind of the same thing with receivers. And I look at Puka Nacua and Davante Adams, and it feels like Puka is soaking it all in. Puka said after practice this week, he said, I think the positive impact has already been felt from Davante. From the moment he walked in, he's been willing to offer information, to have new drills, to have a complete different mindset of somebody who's playing in various offenses, very different schemes and stuff like that. So it's been exciting to hear from him. I think the suddenness and the ability to steal leverage at the line of scrimmage has been something that he thrives on, and everybody in the NFL knows that's something that is one of his greatest assets, to be able to figure out and how that works in our route concepts and timing of our defense. So I'd say that's been one of the biggest things. So what he's essentially saying is, okay, this is someone that has mastered a certain skill set as far as getting that leverage to the line of scrimmage and leading to getting in and out of your breaks and getting open and creating big plays and chunk plays and things like that. Having a guy like that in this offense and learning just the little nuances of the game, the little nuances. I mean, one thing that I can tell you about being around some of these athletes is, I mean, you have to be extremely specific when you're asking them questions about things like that, because they are like magnifying every single small little details, and they see things that people just don't see. And clearly it's something it's small, but it can have a big impact. So I really like the fact too that Puka and Devontae, they're different types of players, right? They're not the same exact type of receivers, whereas it felt like Puka and Cooper Kupp, you had some similarities, right, in their style of play, big physical, things like that. And I think that having someone of Devontae Adams' caliber and his skill set to pair alongside Puka, it's going to pay dividends this year, because you're going to get the production from Devontae, because I still think he has some really good years left in him. And then also it's the long-term effects of, hey, I guarantee you ask Puka probably 4 or 5 years from now about certain things, he can tell you, oh, I learned that 1 year with Devontae. I learned that couple years with Devontae. So, yeah, I mean, this is a major luxury. I mean, this is like, I mean, you're paying a tutor or something, but he's also going to be able to perform for you. So you're getting the long-term effects and the short-term benefits from it as well. And I think, too, that it's going to take some pressure off of Puka. Let's be honest. There's been a lot of pressure on him since that record-setting, that historic rookie season. And you're not going to have him have to carry the offense all by himself as the receiving core. So it's going to be fun to see these two guys together. I think having a mentor type of relationship is only going to help him. And I think that this is going to help him a lot more than a lot of people realize. And I think that it's going to be very, very massive for his career development. So really, really excited about this, because, I mean, this receiving core is, I think, going to be special this year, because I think Matthew Stafford's going to light things up. And I think that we're going to be talking about them as one of the best duos in the sport. And overall production, I think we're getting 1,000 yards at the minimum from each of them. I'm curious, though, if they go to Taco Bell together. I wonder what Puka's order is at Taco Bell, because we know Devontae Adams loves his TCB. Wonder if he's a Taco Bell guy. So that'll be fun to talk about. And yeah, we'll see. Can Tutu Atwell learn? Can it trickle down to that as well? So there's other benefits as well.